Welcome back, everybody. What's going on? Another episode of Ben on Sports, and today is our Week 9 NASCAR preview episode for Bristol, as you can tell by the title. There is some other episodes coming. There's a lot of stuff that happens in mid and late April, both NBA, NHL related, maybe even an NFL draft episode. So expect to start getting multiple episodes a week. But for now, let's focus on NASCAR going into Bristol. So here are some storylines. 2 in a row for Denny. Um, the Darlington win was a little bit different than the Martinsville win, but the most important thing is that Denny got in there, and now Denny heating up on some of the most classic tracks in the NASCAR schedule. Some of the tracks he historically has been the best at, and Denny has as you're going to find out, one of the favorites this week to make it 3 in a row, just like his teammate Christopher Bell did once this season as well early on. Another thing, tires. It was good to see some fall off last week at Darlington. I definitely think it hurt some drivers more than it hurt other drivers. I guess that's a normal thing, right? That's driving strategy. But I think it's good to see tire fall off because tire fall off means more strategy. It means more opportunity for passing. And the guys who were the best at saving those tires were the guys that had the most success last week. It was kind of reminiscent of last year's Bristol race where guys would run and they'd be super fast and the tires just shut off and they drop 10, 15 positions in 3 or 4 laps. It was kind of similar last week. And Byron, arguably his best race since winning the Daytona 500, dominated it, was up front all day, led almost felt like all the laps, swept the first 2 stages, and then just got passed at the end by Denny. Pit road was so important in determining that race, I think. But maybe Byron is back after being a little bit slower, maybe testing some stuff. He's still first in points, but maybe Byron is back to being consistently competitive. And I'm interested to know if this is going to be the spring race or the fall race from last year. 2 very different races. The spring race, man, it was some of the most interesting Bristol racing. You had guys going 2 or 3 wide. You would have guys charge from 15th to 2nd and then go back from 2nd to 20th in one run. The tires fell off extremely fast. It was very much a tire-dependent race. You had guys going all over the track positionally. It was incredibly exciting. In the spring actually set the Bristol record for most lead changes in one race. And then the fall, you just had Kyle Larson come out and absolutely dominate a race, win both stages, win the race. I think he led 467 of 500 laps last fall. That race had the lowest amount of lead changes in like 30 races at Bristol. So, I mean, it was absolutely a domination performance. And it was just incredible to watch. So I'm interested to see what race we get. Do we see one guy dominate? Not a lot of lead changes. Neither race, in my opinion, had too many cautions. Or do we see the spring race from last year where it was literally it felt like anybody could lead laps and there was a lot of passing? Who knows? I think everybody would prefer the spring race though, right? It's more interesting. But every once in a while somebody shows up with a car, brings a car, and they dominate. So I don't know if this is going to be more Joe Gibbs racing and Hendrick domination. Joe Gibbs Racing and Hendrick have combined for all but one victory so far this season. Joe Gibbs Racing and Hendrick Motorsports at this track in Bristol, as we're going to see shortly, at least in the next gen, have pretty much dominated. The best 4 drivers and really like 5 of the top 6 or so, like some of the best drivers on this track have been Hendrick or Joe Gibbs Racing drivers. That's who the wins have gone to. That's who the top 5s, who the top 10s have gone to. They've dominated this season, and most of the fast cars this season have come from those stables at races. So I'm interested if Joe Gibbs Racing and Hendrick continue their Bristol domination and continue their domination over this season. And to that point, again, when I talked about the first non-Big Three team to win, and I'm counting Josh Berry's win as an extension of Penske, who's going to be the first non-Big Three team to win? There's going to be somebody, right? Or there's going to be some underdog team that's going to come through and win. I don't know if I necessarily count 23XI because I feel like they're likely, but I don't know if I really count them in that group. But like a Trackhouse, I would. Does Trackhouse find a way to win? Does RFK Racing find a way to win? All of these are things that could happen this week, and we're still waiting on it because, as I said earlier, if you take Josh Berry winning out of it, it's been all Hendrick and Joe Gibbs Racing this year. Now, I've been speaking about some of this history. Remember, in 2022 and 2023, one of Bristol's races was dirt, so it's not the same thing. So there's only been 4 next-gen races at Bristol on the normal layout because of those dirt races. And Chris Buescher won the first one. A lot of people remember 2022 as Chris Buescher's breakout season. Big one at Bristol that year in the fall. And then Denny Hamlin won the 2023 and 2024 spring races back to back. And then, well, actually, I don't think that 2023 race was spring. It was probably a fall because the spring was Bristol. But still, Denny Hamlin went back to back there regardless. And then Kyle Larson last year, I already spoke about it once, absolutely dominated the fall race, the most recent race held at Bristol. Most or best average finish. Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin, and Chase Elliott are all averaging top 5 finishes. Kyle Larson 3.3, Denny Hamlin 3.8 and 4.8. And then Christopher Bell right behind them at 5.5. I told you Hendrick and JGR have a lot of good runs. It may only be through 2 drivers for each team, but wow. Those are some pretty darn good numbers and probably your 4 favorites. And then Chris Buescher, not too far behind at 6.5 with the 5th best. And then just somebody I wanted to mention, I added a 6th column here. I think it's interesting. Michael McDowell with an average finish of 9.8 in 4 races. Now, all of them were with Front Row. He's with Spire now, but that's a pretty good number. I mean, think about there's a lot of big names Michael McDowell has beaten out. In fact, the only person that I didn't include that's in front of him is Cole Custer, and that's because Cole Custer only has 1 next-gen race run at Bristol instead of the 4, so I didn't feel like it was right including him. Other than that, everybody else, whether they've run 1 race or 4 races or 5 races, is behind Michael McDowell. So maybe a surprise contender this week if Spire has some speed. Another thing I want to mention, 9.8 in 4 races, but he only has 1 top 10. I believe it is a 6th place finish and then 3 11th place finishes or something like that. So McDowell has done it really, really well at this track. Most top 5s, as you can see, Kyle Larson, that 3.3 average finish, he has been in the top 5 every single time the next-gen car has raced here. And then Denny Hamlin and Christopher Bell, 3 of the 4 times. And then Chase Elliott and Chris Buescher, 2. And then most top 10s, it's the same group of people. Larson at 4, Hamlin at 4, Elliott at 4, Bell at 4, and then Chris Buescher at 3. I think you can see who your top 5 contenders are based off the fact, looking at the winners, the best average finish, the most top 5s, most top 10s, it's all the same 5 people at the top. I think I know who the 4 people I'm trusting to do well this week are. Favorites to win. I've already mentioned these 2 teams, Hendrick Motorsports and Joe Gibbs. They've been the best teams this year. They've historically been the best teams. They've been the best teams at this track. They have to be your favorites to be out front this week. RFK Racing. Ryan Preece is pretty good at Bristol. He's a top 10 driver at Bristol. Brad Keselowski's up there. I've already talked about Chris Buescher. RFK has good short track speed. They're starting to heat up as a team. I think that it's more likely they win than Penske does. I have Penske in 4th, who's been a lot of hit or miss. Logano's been hit or miss here. Blaney's just been average. Cindric is outside of the top 20 when it comes to his average finish. So Penske can be fast, but they're so hit and miss in Bristol. I don't have as much confidence in them as I do RFK. And then 23XI. Again, Bubba had a really good finish, a good top 10 finish, or 5 finish actually. He finished 3rd in the fall race last year, but he's also had some bad finishes. Tyler Reddick, Bristol hasn't been his favorite track. I think 23XI can have speed. And I honestly think if a driver's going to win this race for 23XI, it's probably going to be Bubba over Reddick, but only time will tell. And then driver rankings. Guess who my top 5 are? Larson at 1, Denny at 2. I don't think you can really argue that. Those two are like tier 1A to me. Christopher Bell and Chase Elliott, they're like tier 1B. And then Chris Buescher is either 1B or tier 2, and it's not close after those top 5. And then I have Brad Keselowski at 6. Maybe other people wouldn't have him that high, but Brad's done well at this track. Like I say, RFK seems to have a really, really good short track package. This is a track that sometimes experience pays. I would certainly trust Brad Keselowski, to have a good run. Ross Chastain is another guy who has good finishes here, and he's hot as of late. He's figuring out a way to get his track house number 1 around the track, even if it doesn't seem like he has the consistent speed of some of the other guys. And then William Byron and Alex Bowman both have had some good runs there. Both have okay average finishes. Both have done moderately well, and their two teammates have speed. So clearly Hendrick knows how to build a fast car. And then Ryan Preece, somebody who's had some good runs, especially on short tracks. He's run well with Ford with Stuart Haas Racing at this track multiple times. I expect him to be even better with RFK this week. Driver power rankings. Denny Hamlin, it's hard to argue he's not won back-to-back race wins, and they're going to a track that he's really good at. I had Denny Hamlin in my 1 spot. William Byron had a dominating performance, just fell short in pit road of winning that race. He's still the points leader on the season. It seems like he's starting to find some speed from some of those slower finishes. William Byron in 2. Christopher Bell still at near the top of the point sheet, still finding speed consistently. And again, another person that likes this track. Larson, I bumped down to 4. He has speed. He has speed on almost every track. He's probably the most talented driver in the field, but he has got to stop self-spinning. I feel like he's self-spinning a little bit more this year than he maybe historically has. I know he's somebody who likes to ride the edge and do everything he can for speed, but at some point you have to. You can't keep setting yourself back with self spins. But Larson's still fast, still near the top of the points. I expect him to be fast this weekend, as I gave him my best chance to win. Chase Elliott 5, he's just consistently plugging away. He's top 5 in points. If he keeps plugging away like this, the win is coming, and it maybe potentially could even be this week. Tyler Reddick, kind of rebound. Top 5 finish at Darlington. I don't know if I expect too much out of him at Bristol, but he's still in a great points position. He still has a lot of good finishes this year. He's getting some stage points. Good rebound run at Darlington after just a so-so day at Martinsville. Tyler Reddick, again, he's somebody he's going to find his way to victory lane. It's a matter of when, not if. Ryan Blaney with 2 decent days back to back. It's funny, I still feel like Ryan Blaney has a really good chance at the championship 4 and the playoffs and being a contender. They're bringing a lot of speed. They just had to figure out how to translate that speed in the wins, whether it's blown engines or getting calls and other wrecks. They finally have 2 solid finishes back to back. Blaney in the next gen hasn't been great at Bristol. Like I said, Team Penske's kind of struggled there to find consistent speed. Maybe, just maybe, he can continue the turnaround, and this race can get him some momentum. Chris Buescher, another good finish. Again, he's another guy that's just kind of quietly putting together good finishes, collecting stage points. I think he's 11th in points right now, and he's just kind of hanging around there. And eventually, I think that win could be coming if he can keep finding good finishes. He likes this track. He's a top 5 driver at this track under next gen. Look for Chris Buescher to make a push to the top 10 in points this week, maybe even get a win. Joey Logano with another good finish. Arguably his best consecutive 2 weeks this season have come the last 2 weeks at Martinsville and Darlington. Going to a track at Bristol where he has had success, just not in the next gen as much. I feel like he's either top 10 or bottom 10 in the next gen. I think a lot of Penske drivers could use a good run this week. and I think it would go a long way uh, for Joey Logano to continue the momentum. Bubba Wallace fell a little bit this week. Was a little bit better early than he was late at Darlington. He likes Bristol, though, kind of an underrated driver at Bristol. He has a good average finish there, not as great as some of the other people we mentioned. He's still top 10 in points, still having a great start to the year, even if he didn't get the finish he maybe wanted or expected last week. I think he can rebound this week and definitely go towards a top 10 run, especially because the last race here, he had a third place finish. Alex Bowman was super hot. I had him way up high just a couple weeks ago. What happened? 2 finishes in the 20s. He got stage 1, I believe, and then kind of just faded. Darlington was interesting with that tire fall off. He had some guys that qualified well that just sunk like a rock. It's like they had a parachute on over the long run. Some guys were able to make a charge. Alex Bowman needs to quickly course correct, and while Bristol Lane is worst track, it's not his best track, but Hendrick seems to be fast, so maybe this is the week he can course correct after 2 slow weeks. Ross Chastain, I don't think he has the speed as a lot of the guys in front of him, but he's still finding a way to put together points in top 10 finishes, especially on these short tracks. It's getting him in a good points position. And to be honest, I kind of expect the same type of week this week as it's been, borderline top 5, definitely running top 10, getting some stage points, and being able to hold off some faster cars behind him. Chase Briscoe is somebody that I think a lot of people expected to be fast. He was the last race winner at Darlington, and he upgraded in equipment. He qualified well, and then just sank like a rock in the long run. Didn't get any stage points, didn't have a great finish, dropped in the point standings. Not a good week for Chase Briscoe. Had a good Bristol run last week. He's not an awful Bristol driver. Can the step up in equipment help him out? Clearly, his teammates have found speed. Joe Gibbs Racing has won 5 races this year. Briscoe hasn't won any, and that's going to be the expectation. Bad week last week for him. Can he rebound this week? Ryan Preece, somebody who's still pretty hot. Another guy who was looking really, really strong stage 1 and then kind of went by the wayside as the race went on and didn't have a good finish. He's still been fast on these short tracks. He's been fast on this track. There's a lot of guys that fit that description this week. I think Ryan Preece, in order to stay into the playoffs and points, is going to need to come up with a big week this week. Kyle Busch. A good week last week, maybe getting the momentum the right way. He's been good at Bristol before next gen. In some of the previous gen cars, Bristol was one of his best tracks. He's won there. He's actually the only driver to sweep Truck, Xfinity, and Cup at Bristol in one weekend, and he's done it twice. So he likes this track. He's good at this track, but he hasn't had the speed, really, I would say, since the pandemic. Definitely in the next-gen car that he's used to, but he's going to need to find some to get some momentum / keep some momentum. Maybe I think Kyle Busch finds a way to be competitive this weekend, maybe get some stage points, head to a top 15 finish. AJ Allmendinger, another guy who's right there on points, can definitely make the playoffs. He didn't have an awful week last week. He's a vet going back and forth between Cup and Xfinity. He's not bad at Bristol. He has some experience here. He has some good finishes. And maybe AJ Allmendinger can come up with a good points day and start to add some padding to that playoff cut line. He certainly is no stranger to this track. Michael McDowell didn't have a great week last week, but he still has good average finishing. It feels like every week he's a shoo-in for a top 20 finish. This week, I said he has the 6th finish, the 6th best average finish in next gen at this track. I don't think he's ever finished worse than 11th. I mean, a good points day, and Michael McDowell is in the playoffs without winning a race. 9 weeks into the season, don't think a lot of people would be expecting that. I put also Cindric here. He had a good week last week. He's with good equipment. I think he's, last week needs to be the start of a rebound. He's going through a really cold stretch. He's outside the top 20 in points after a fast start to the season. And this has kind of been the story of Austin Cindric's career. The only tracks he's been consistent on are road courses and super speedways. Everything else has been very, very up and down. He needs to start making leeway in points, especially if he can't find his way to victory lane. Had a good week last week. Let's see if he can build on it. Barry, since winning in Vegas, has kind of kept going down, down, down. He showed glimpses of speed, but can't finish races. Because he has that race win, I'm hesitant to drop him off the top 20, but he needs to get something going. And maybe Bristol at his home track is the place to do it, a place where he's had speed. Maybe Cindric, or maybe Barry, that is, can get some of that momentum back that he's lost since winning at Vegas. And then Ricky Stenhouse Jr. still hanging around that playoff cut line, still hanging around the playoffs. Used to be good at Bristol, hasn't been good at Bristol in the next gen. Can he find some of his old speed at Bristol and make leeway? Because there's some guys coming behind him in the power rankings, and there's some guys coming from behind him in the actual point standings that would love to overtake him this week if he doesn't have speed. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming out and listening. This has been my Week 9 NASCAR preview and predictions. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know in the comments what you think, any hot takes you have about the NASCAR season so far, what you want to see at Bristol, what you're interested in at Bristol this week. Let me know what other kinds of content you want to see. It can even be not even podcast episodes. Maybe it's film breakdowns. Maybe it's reaction videos, all kinds of that stuff. Let me know what you want to see, and I'll try and make it happen. Come follow me on X. Like, comment, and subscribe. Those are the 3 things that help me more than anything else. Have a fun sports weekend. Like I said, baseball is back. If you're a golf guy, the Masters are on. The golf person, the Masters are on. I know that's always a big event for people. And then we have NASCAR at Bristol, one of the famous short tracks. So have fun out there watching sports. NHL and NBA are coming to a close. I have some episodes coming for that. Everybody, do your NFL draft prep. Thank you for taking time out of your days, weeks, and lives for listening. Everybody, take care. Stay safe. Peace out.